Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Series 12 story, Orphan 55, written by Ed Himes and is directed by Lee Haven Jones. It was part of Series 12, so that's why I'm holding the box set. Of course, I don't have a cover for it yet, but I will have. That will connect it all to my classic Doctor Who DVD collection, and it will look spotless on my shelf. But anyway, for now, no DVD cover of the show. This story was, at the time, very, not controversial, but like it was split between the fandom. We could say we'll get onto that later on. But this is the second story of the series, but it's the third episode because the first story, Spyfall, was a two-parter. Usually the second story is the most disconnected to the story arc, and how Series 12 is bringing back the story arc. This episode is much more standalone. In fact, it is standalone. They don't mention the story arc at all. The exception that they mention that the Doctor is slightly grumpy after the events of the last episode. However, nothing in this story, like if it wasn't for the fact that little piece of dialogue, you wouldn't tell it's any different from any other story in Series 11 or like any time of the period of the series history. It's really strange like that. But anyway. So yeah, this is a more standalone story than anything. And this story is politically heavy. This story talks about the idea of climate change. Also, I do apologise. It is absolutely pouring outside. I don't know if you can hear that, but yeah, it is oh my god, it is absolutely horrible outside. So I do apologise for the sound in the background if you're hearing that. But yeah, the story is talking about climate change. Coincidence? Yes, I know. In fact, Ed Himes is a very political figure. In fact, I believe it was during the airing of this episode, he was arrested for being part of climate change protests. So the guy's an absolute legend, and he should have our full support, regardless of his writing qualities, or if you like his writing or not. He had previously written an episode in Series 11, which I have stated before that I do like. But this story, we're talking about this story in particular. But what is this story about? Because I'm getting ahead of myself here. The Doctor, Ryan, Graham and Yaz, they found that they've got tickets to go to a holiday resort called Tranquilla. And what Graham doesn't realise when he's putting all the cards together is that it's actually a teleportation unit. And so out away from the TARDIS, they get teleported straight onto this holiday resort. And they meet up with a bunch of characters, including hyphen with a 3, Kane, Benny, Velma, Benny, and Vernies and Silvas. Just a bunch of characters. And the first half of the episode, the first bit of the episode is all about trying to get introduced to all of these characters. The story does this in some really bizarre ways. There's the story right off the bat is so discombobulated. For example, we've only got an hour to spend on this narrative, and it is a very big narrative, if I say so for myself, where they get attacked and is under siege. But there's a really weird scene where Ryan gets a bug thing in his hand, and the Doctor holds him down as he starts collapsing, rips out his chip bag, makes him breathe out of it, pulls his ears, makes him sneeze, and also tells him to suck his thumb. And it's just what the hell am I watching at this point? What the hell is this got to do with anything? Though that little bug thing does play a part later on in the story, it's so minor, so small. It's they have an entire scene dedicated to introducing this element of the story in the most bizarre way possible, to make it Ryan suck his thumb. And it's also here that he meets Bella. I did write her name, or at least I thought I wrote her name, but I realised I've got Bella and Benny written as the same actor, so I don't know which one is Cole Farrell. I believe that is the actor that plays Benny. I could be wrong on that front. I do apologise. I'm not very set up on this, aren't I? And the Doctor gets introduced to hyphen 3, played by hyphen with a 3, my apologies, played by Amy Booth Steele. And she's like this really weird character. Like, the costume of it just looks horrible. No offense to the production team. There's some really great production here, especially the filming location and the design of the bad guys, or at least part of the design of the bad guys. But -3, she's got like this clear like wig on. She's got like face paint and this like scribble tail. And she comes out, she feels like she came right out of a pantomime, which in regard makes this story feel a lot like the story from the 7th Doctor era, where it felt a lot more pantomime, it felt a lot more silly like that. And you had people in like silly costumes like this. In fact, a holiday resort that gets turned into a vicious battleground. Does that sound familiar? Yes, it's Paradise Towers. This story is essentially Paradise Towers, as long as well with another story which we'll get onto in a bit. But essentially they find out that this holiday resort is being attacked at all fronts by these dreaded creatures known as the Dregs. And let's talk about directing for a second, because the story does a strange thing when it comes to how it's shot. A lot of the scenes of the Dregs, especially from the inside, they are shot completely separate from the rest of the crew and the rest of the set. This means you'll get a shot of characters reacting in a clear environment, cut with scenes of Dregs, clearly looks like with nothing in the background, feeling this very dissonance with the villains. Sometimes it works. It reminds me a lot of how some of the scenes in the Zygons are used in the story Day of the Doctor. They do like a very similar thing where it cuts between reaction shots inside the set and the creatures like scowling at this camera in front of a black backdrop. A very similar effect. Now the Dreads in loads of shots look really cool, especially the close-ups of their mouths with this like dripping with drool, and they've got these really giant like heads with the smaller eyes on the corners, and they've got like these holes in their faces and their shoulders, and a lot of scenes with them look really cool. However, there's a lot of shots where they are shown from like knees up, and the effect does kind of wear off. Their head looks really big from the rest of the body, and up until like a part, they're just like grey, and it looks very cheesy and very corny. But that's what people actually have about this story. See, this story when it came out was very unpopular at the time. However, it is ripe with meme quality. When Ryan is sucking his thumb, he gets introduced to Bella, who's also sucking her thumb, and they kind of have this like romantic interest. He kind of tries to pick her up, and like the only real connection that they have is that they were both sucking their thumbs at the start of the story, and they have dead parents, and that is all that they have in common. And the story kind of tries to get us to treat them as if like these are potential lovers, and it's really, really, really silly. -3 as well. Like, she does nothing important into the story. She adds nothing, but just a weird, strange design. We also get Neva, I believe, I can't pronounce it, Neva, played by James Bulkley, who you might remember best as Jay from The Inbetweeners, as well in the story his son, Silas, played by Lewin Lloyd. And they are these mechanics, and they've got like these green wigs on for some reason. And the story kind of treats them like normal people, but they do some really stupid things. There's a scene where they're basically in the bunker, they're in a safe space, and as the Doctor is saying, right, we must not leave this area, the boy has like a little argument with his father and storms out of the room whilst pressing the button so that he can't get in. Why did he do that? He put himself up there really vulnerable. Also, in terms of directing, there's a lot of scenes where characters just start disappearing without like any like backup shots to reveal like where they are. It does feel like a majority of the story, characters just disappear, and when our characters go following for them, it doesn't feel, we don't feel that urgency. Probably the most famous element of this story is with Velma, played by Julia Foster, who has this romantic relationship. She has a partner who tries to marry her, Benny. Yes, this is the story with the Benny meme in it. Essentially, Benny is kind of like the last shot that we see of him as like a person. He's completely fine. He's walking outside the hallway and he picks up Velma's hat. Next thing you know, like they're all like, "Where's Benny? Benny!" And we quickly learn so by some sort of tracking that the dreads have taken him, and because of the scanner, they know that he's moving really, really fast. No way it could be a human being, or at least a normal elderly human being. And so he's been captured by the drags for some reason, and they've got to leave the atmosphere to save him. And they basically reveal that the holiday resort is actually just a dome, and they're on an orphan planet, a planet that was abandoned by its civilization, so that because of all the pollution and the warfare, and basically the people, the poor people, the lower class basically just die as the higher class, the rich and the wealthy go out into space and survive. And they have like these little like oxygen tanks that are put on their noses. It looks really silly. And I like the gloves with the light ups that shows how much the oxygen. I wish it was just more than just like a plaster on the nose. And they go chasing after the Benny character, to which Velma, Julian Foster's character, just constantly screams his name, "Benny! Benny!" And it gets to a point where you can't help but laugh. Just the concern in her voice, but not for a concern at somebody that's like she's known all her life, to someone she's loved, is like dying and is in a very horrible state. It very comes off like theatre, like you're watching a pantomime. That's what this story feels like at most points, a pantomime. But there's loads of elements that takes itself extremely seriously. For example, the Doctor interacts with one of the main soldiers, Kane, played by Laura Fraser. And she's like this military figure who's basically here to protect the holiday resorts and the residents of the holiday resorts. There's also a bit of backstory about her wanting money for something, which you'll get onto a bit. And the story at this point takes itself stupidly seriously, and like they treat it as if it's like the next, I don't know, like one of the biggest like important stories. But how can you like take this seriously when you've got an old like lady constantly shouting, "Benny, Benny"? There's a really like dramatic scene where essentially they track down the dreg that has Benny. As I stated, we never see Benny after the point. So you see they're in the ship and it's been attacked and they can hear Benny's voice. Now, I don't know like if it's like the actor's fault or if he was given poor direction here. But his voice didn't sound like he was in any sort of peril. It literally just sounded like he was outside fine. I don't know like who's to blame on that front, and you know, it's a production. I believe the story was one of the few. It could have been just before COVID hit, but yeah, really strange times. But yeah, he sounded completely fine, which also added into the unintentional humour at this scene, because he asks Velma, will she marry? I got two questions. Velma, will you marry me? And she's like, "Oh yes, what's the other thing?" There's like a slight pause, and then he just like calmly goes, "If anybody gets the chance, can you please shoot me?" Now, I know the implication, obviously the thing is that he's been tortured and he is suffocating in the lack of oxygen on the surface of the planet, and the dregs have got him, seemingly torturing him, and we presume as well playing with him. But because like he sounded so calm, so like unharmed, the implication, or at least what my image what puts into my head, is that like he's asked this woman to marry him, and he instantly regrets it. So he's just like, oh God, not this woman. Anyone please, just shoot me, just put me out of my misery. Like, that was the implication. When they then escape because the drags, get into the ship, killing -3. Our characters go find this bunker, and Kane basically announces to Velma, it's like, yes, I saw Benny, and don't worry, I killed him. She says it so casually. She says it like that. She's like, don't worry, I killed him. And obviously Velma's reaction, what? You monster, you killed my Benny! And like, our characters like treat her as like this, oh, this poor woman. But like, her reaction is like, like he fell down like one stairs, and he has to go to like A&E. That's like it, and it's so like embobulated as well. It's so funny. In fact, there's a scene later on where she essentially sacrifices herself for the team, and she comes up and she's like, which one of you took my Benny? This woman's a hero. This woman's a hero. She is the next Doctor. Velma! Damn you, Velma! Why did you have to sacrifice yourself? She died for your sins. Quite literally, in fact, as it's revealed, right after this scene, the Doctor discovers, by the way, this is the thing I was talking about, where it's also a kind of remake of another Doctor Who classic story, where the Doctor finds out that this bunker that they're in is actually I think it's Russian, suburban, Sabria tunnels, basically revealing Orphan 55 is a future version of Earth that was being decayed, eroded by warfare and pollution. Does that sound familiar? Well, for those massive Doctor Who fans, it should. It's the exact same plot as the Sixth Doctor story, The Impossible Planet, which is part of the Trial of the Time Lord storyline. The first story, if my memory serves me correctly. And, like, the story had a much more, not a grounded, very, like, silly, but the story was taking itself, like, you know, it's just for fun, essentially, in terms of the narrative. This is, like, there wasn't much focus. From this point on, the story is very politically heavy, and it happens, like, about 2/3 of the way in, and the story doesn't feel like it's justified. Also, as well, Bella, the character that Ryan had a relationship with, turns on the team and reveals that Kane is her mother, who kind of abandoned her as her father died. That comes out like nowhere. It was such a like what? What? I must be honest. When I was in that scene, like when she revealed that she was her daughter, I burst out laughing. Like, it's the cliche. It's like, we are related. I am your father. I am your son. I am your daughter. I am your mother. Kind of twist with like no built up, no real dramatic effect on the story, like on Star Wars. Like with Star Wars, the implication of Darth Vader being Luke's father changes the entire story, changes the narrative. Here, like, who cares? Who cares? The story would have worked a lot better if it was just that Bella was revealed to be a proactive member. Like, she was, she's heard about this planet and what they're doing to this planet, and she is basically defending the drags. And the Doctor also learns that the drags are actually mutated, evolved humans that can adapt to their environment, to the point where they are actually breathing in carbon dioxide and breathing out oxygen, which actually leads into a really great scene where the Doctor, along with another character, I can't remember if it was Kane or not, they put themselves in a cage and lock all the doors so that the Doctor, her companion at the time, I can't remember who it is, and the drag that's in the room, they're basically keeping each other alive. If the drag kills the Doctor and her friend, he will disintegrate all the carbon dioxide that they're breathing out. And they're keeping each other alive until the door opens. That was a really good scene. I really did like that. And then the story basically ends with our characters getting to the teleport system. Bella and Kane reunite as they stop the drags from getting the rest of the surviving members, as they get the teleporting working, and all of a sudden our characters are transported back into the TARDIS, to which the Doctor gives a speech about how that was just one possible future, one of many possible futures for Earth. You argue about the washing as the house is burning down. Be the best of humanity. It's a kind of a disembodied speech, because pollution, though yes, a lot of people in average day life could be doing more, should be doing more, it is something that a lot of people do think about and do take active precautions, with a lot of recycling, turning down off the electrics as much as possible. It's mainly to do with big corporate organizations where pollution needs to be tackled with the most. The big corporations that pump out fuel and set out all the carbon dioxide and the methane and all that out into the atmosphere. It's the big companies that really need this. Doctor telling her 3 companions to be the best of humanity when it comes to fighting pollution, is it going to change hardly anything? It's a very disembodied speech, and it makes, politically, it doesn't make a lick of sense. I do get what the story's trying to do. It's we should be doing more, we should take an active part in all of this. But, Doctor, they're not, the ones to blame. It is the big, higher corporations that are doing this. Also, the Doctor implies that they can change the future, which is something that the Doctor has been hesitantly persistent before. Of course, this is a destroyed Earth, and this is in our future whilst there's present. My belief is that she said that so that it takes her minds off things, that makes it believe that it's better. Because she did try and stop Yaz from discovering this when she discovered that it was the future Earth. So that kind of implies that she didn't want Yaz to worry about this, which also implies that the Doctor thinks there is no cure. Changing their opinions will change nothing, or at least would have bad ramifications on the timeline. But there you go. So anyway, that was Orphan 55. Overall, this story not as great. It's not great. It has a lot of issues. Characters do stupid things for stupid reasons. There's a lot of just weird scenes that just go nowhere. A lot of characters just say silly things and stupid just pointless things. There's a lot of time wasting for a story that's only an hour long. There are some really great humorous moments. I forgot to mention just before the teleportation, they've only got 5 seconds, and Graham's is oh no, I forgot my Speedos. I'm only joking, I've already got them on. Woohoo! That bit got me a massive chuckle. Anything with Bragley Walsh, Doctor Who made me fell in love with Bragley Walsh. The Doctor is always great as always in this story. Ryan's scenes with that Bella woman are very strange. Yaz gets really nothing to do in this story. And the supporting cast are varied from maybe overacting, or at least misdirected, to taking themselves extraordinarily seriously for this kind of story. So it's a complete utter mess. I did think I enjoyed it, however. I did think there is a lot to like here. There is a lot of shots. There is a lot of directing, a lot of scenes that do work, that do play well. But it's underneath all of the... Benny! Velma died because we... Remember, guys, we need to stop pollution. Because otherwise, Velma will be doomed to die forever in every timeline. Now, we need to stop pollution so we can save Benny. And help Velma with her love life. So that she can get married, for crying out loud. This story's the best story ever. Okay, I'm sarcasm out of the way. This story, it's okay. However, I think it's a lot more enjoyable when you just turn off your brain and you just have an absolute laugh with it. The story, again, is really silly. It's very corny as well. The story reminds me a lot, so much of the late 80s Doctor Who, especially the 7th Doctor story. In fact, the story which has like very serious moments mixed with a lot of strange, over-the-top, quirky moments and pantomime, and all under a politically heavy story. That's a 7th Doctor story right there! This could have easily been the 7th Doctor and Mel, or 7th Doctor and Ace, go in to Tranquilla and Stephen Orphan 55. But, yeah, that was Orphan 55. So join me next time, where the characters will be going to the past and being introduced to one of scientists' greatest people on the planet, as well as scientists' worst, as the Doctor gets in conflict with not only a war between essentially two famous individuals of history, but also must stop an invasion from an insect-like race, as the Doctor comes face to face with one of the greatest heroes of history. So join me next time for Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!